All right, 101ers. Today we're going to be talking about variables and types, and I have Justin and Bea here to help me explain.
Hey, so I'm going to talk about importing functions from other libraries. Chris has written some functions such as this for you so that it'll make things a little bit easier, namely prompt and print. And the way you get these is on the very top of your file in TypeScript, you type import followed by 2 curly braces, and inside the curly braces you're going to write the name of the function you want. And then after that you type from and then the name of the directory, in this case intro CS. Sometimes when you're writing code you're going to get tired of reading computer talk all the time and you'll want to leave a note for yourself. You can do this by writing a comment. In order to write a comment, what you do is you write 2 forward slashes like this, and then you can say whatever you want, and you'll know it'll be a comment because it'll be in green text. And what happens here is basically the computer skips through these lines of code when it's reading your code, and you can basically write whatever you want in your comments. You could write like some information about what a variable's doing, what a line of code is doing. You could write a love letter to someone else in your development team. You can do whatever with comments.
So one of the 3 main data types you're going to be using in TypeScript is a number, and it's pretty self-explanatory. 2 of the main types of numbers you're going to be using are integers and decimals.
Another kind of variable that we use is a string. Not that kind of string. Get out of here. A string is just a fancy way of saying a word. So anything you put in quotes is a string. If I were to put quotes around the number 1, it's a string now. It's not a number anymore. If I were to put quotes around my name, Mary, that's a string.
And the last data type that we have in TypeScript is called the Boolean. It's called a Boolean because when we program, we're booleang. Anyway, what a Boolean is it's basically evaluates to one of 2 values, either true or false.
So if you want to give a piece of data a specific place in memory, you're going to want to declare it. And there's a specific type of specific syntax that you're going to use to do so. So you're going to start off by saying let, and then you're going to say the name of the variable. So in this example, I'm just going to say let temperature, which is my name of the variable, and then I'm going to have a semicolon or a colon, and then the type, which in this case would be number. When you name a variable in your declaration, you're not going to want to put any spaces, because if so, the program will run because the syntax isn't right. The variable you declare has to begin with a letter. A variable doesn't exist until you speak it into existence, so you're not able to use the variable throughout the code until you declare it by using the word let. The program will get really confused if you have 2 variables with the same name, so make sure every variable has a different variable name.
When we make a variable, we create a place in memory for that variable, and what that place in memory can do is it can store a piece of information relating to that variable, and when you refer to that variable from then on, you'll be referencing that piece of data. So, as Bea was saying earlier, let's say the temperature variable that we set, we want it to be freezing. It's 32 degrees. The way you would write that in code is say, on the left, temperature equals 32. The value that's on the right is then assigned to the name of the variable, and then from then on, whenever you want in the code, when you say temperature, the program will know that what you mean is 32. Additionally, there are a couple different ways that you can assign variables. When you do it for the first time, it's called initialization. You can initialize in the same statement as when you declare a variable, or you can do it in a separate line. Additionally, once you have a variable, you can change the value, and there are a couple different ways that you can do that. You can just simply say the name of the data, or the value of the data you want it to be. For example, we can say we want it to be 70 degrees, 32 is too cold. We can do that by saying temperature equals 70 degrees. Another way we can do it is by using the current value of temperature, because the computer knows what the current value of temperature is and derive a new value from that. So temperature equals 32 plus 38. So you could write that by saying temperature equals temperature plus 38. Temperature plus 38 will evaluate to 70 on the right, and then it'll go back into the value of temperature on the left. And so from then on, anytime you refer to temperature, it'll now be 70 instead of 32.
An important thing about variables is the scope that you can use them in. So if we were to declare a variable inside of a block of code, it can't get out of that block. We can't use it outside of that block of code. It's kind of like if you were to take Russian nesting dolls, right? So you can, from the outside, go all the way in and take everything from the inside. But if you're on the inside of a Russian nesting doll, there's no way to get out. So once you hit, that's the same thing with curly braces. So if you declare something within curly braces, it can't leave those curly braces. Most of the time in this class, you'll be seeing global variables that are declared at the top of the code that you can use anywhere else in the code. So last thing we're going to talk about today is a couple functions called prompt functions. So we can prompt for different things like numbers or strings, and we can store whatever the user enters as a variable. So the way to do that is we'll start by declaring the variable with let's say name equal await prompt string. And then in parentheses we might say enter your name, right? So let's break this down a little bit. So we start with the declaration, which we've already gone over, which is let name. And then after that is kind of new territory. So first thing we'll talk about is the await keyword. The await keyword basically says, hey, we're going to hang out here until the user enters something. We're not going to continue on with our program. And it helps us be able to ask the user for multiple different things before we do anything with that information. Next we have like prompt string. So prompt string is going to send whatever it has in parentheses, so in this case, enter your name. It's going to send that question over to our environment, so it'll ask the user that, like, enter your name, and then it'll give a space for them to do so. And whatever they enter in that space is going to be what's stored into our variable.